is the way that the social infrastructure of neighborhoods shape people's capacity to live well or to survive really, big catastrophic situations. So the kind of blockbuster finding in the book was that there are all these really poor and vulnerable neighborhoods in Chicago, and many kind of looked identical demographically, but it turned out that there were widely varying experiences that they had during this crisis, and the thing that really determined who would live and who would die was the quality of what I came to think of as social infrastructure, like the gathering places, physical places where people interact. And
having a variety of enterprises draws people through these sidewalks at different times to different places throughout the day. This makes the sidewalks as in-between spaces more used and safer. Sidewalks and streets often fall victim to the self-fulfilling prophecy. If there's a lot of crime reported in a certain street, or if it always feels desolate, then people just assume it's not a happening place to be, and they'll use other routes. Another way to have effective eyes on the streets are to have these small mom and pop storekeepers. Keep in mind, Jacobs is writing this in the 1960s, and she notes that the North End neighborhood in Boston has a lot of mom and pop shops where they cannot turn their back on the street. She notes a lively street always has users and watchers.
She made people look at the street and what was there. She spoke about the eyes on the street, the smaller buildings where people looked out and watched their neighbors. She spoke about the small stores, the mom and pop stores, all of the things that urban renewal not only was destroying, but didn't acknowledge existed.
Vision says you don't want to break out manufacturing and send it off somewhere else. You don't want to, in fact, send the citizens off to the suburbs. What you want to have is an integrated community, the way it used to be, in essence. But you want to have people in a position to walk to work. You want small-scale buildings. You want people to be able to watch the streets.
The beauty of cities is the mixing of cultures and the possibility of a shared prosperity. But gated communities turn their backs on that image of the city.
So gates may keep people out of these communities, but I'm not sure I want to be let in.
Let's put a definition out there. What are gated communities exactly? They are private communities that restrict access using gates, walls, landscaping, or other barriers. Security may be provided by guards or keycard access. People generally choose to live in gated communities for 3 reasons: lifestyle, prestige, and safety. In countries and cities where crime is truly high, these communities are very popular for those who can afford it. People may move into a gated community for a combination of reasons. A celebrity may like a gated community for the prestige, but also for the safety and privacy the gates provide. You can be safe, prestigious, and environmentally sensitive while generously paying taxes to the local government. But there are still many negatives of gated communities, and they largely outweigh any positives. Gated communities create a physical landscape of fear, where we wall ourselves off from others. This quote really sums it all up. Gated communities turn a vicious cycle by attracting like-minded residents who seek shelter from outsiders and whose physical seclusion then worsens paranoid groupthink against outsiders. A study of gated community residents did interviews with those residents. While they don't represent the thoughts of all people, they highlight some of the problems with isolating yourself from others. Here are a couple of excerpts.
Who lives in your community?
People who are retired and don't want to maintain large yards. People who want to raise families in a more protected environment.
What do you mean by that?
There are a lot of families who have, in the last couple of years, after we built, as the crime rate or the reporting of that crime rate has become such a prominent part of the news of the community, there's been a lot of fear flight. My daughter feels very threatened when she sees poor people.
How do you explain that?
She hasn't had enough exposure. We were driving next to a truck with some day laborers and equipment in the back, and we were parked beside them at the light. She wanted to move because she was afraid those people were going to come and get her. They looked scary to her. I explained that they were workmen and they're the backbone of our country. They're coming from work, but...
These aren't cherry-picked examples. Nearly all of the 20 interviewees in the study mentioned some fear of others or crime in their interview.
Ultimately, communities like Canyon Lake and countless others offer the promise of a safe community surrounded by people just like you. The problem is that when you separate yourself off from other groups, you might reduce your tolerance and understanding for different kinds of people.
Public spaces are important to everyone's physical and mental wellness and well-being, but public spaces are also really important to adolescents in that kind of transitional phase where you're going out more, you're kind of getting a better sense of the world, you're learning how to socialize outside of your home. And public spaces that encourage you to independently make sense of that, but also provide a safe space to do that are so important.
There's a lot of young people in Crewe, so we need places to go to. So like the market hall and the theatre are really nice places to get together, have some nice food with your friends, have a few nice drinks, socialise. They're really important because that's what young people do at the end of the day, especially as women. That's why I really like these spaces, because I don't feel threatened or in danger at all, anything like that. We shouldn't have to change who we are in a public space. You know, like women are harassed in the street all the time, and we shouldn't have to change the way that we walk to avoid the harassment, but actually there should be things put in place that stop it in the first place, so we don't have to go the long way home, the safer way home. Everywhere should be safe for us. There's nothing wrong with who we are as women, there's something wrong with the place. And the change should come from the place, not us.
I put a great deal of faith in young people. Of course, they turn old and they may get frozen in their ideas, but they don't have quite as much trouble accepting new ideas.
We know now that first we can form the cities, but then the cities form us. We know that architecture and city planning has an enormous influence on the patterns of life.
I would really like to see a world where people, communities, not just young girls and women, but local people can be empowered through research, through peer research, through these methodologies, to have a say in what's going on around them. One of the key takeaways that I took away from this is how local people have amazing responses to local challenges. It's about giving them the time and the space and the commitment to eke that out. And that's something that I think higher education can play an important role in doing. And I really hope that this sets a sort of benchmark for what that can look like, you know, not just here at LSE, but also elsewhere.